The What's Neat Show is sponsored by Lombard Hobbies, your value hobby shop for over 40 years of modelers helping modelers. Big inventory, value pricing, fast shipping, and great service. And by Bachmann Trains. Now that's the way to run a railroad. Check out their website at bachmanntrains.com. And thank you for helping us support the best hobby in the world. This is What's Neat for May 2023. I'm your host, Ken Patterson, and this month we've got a great show in that this is part 4 of the four-part series that we've been running on how to build a shelf layout. In this last part of the show, we are going to demonstrate how to work this shelf layout into a permanent layout that's 12 feet by 5 feet, and it's just a really good, complete package when you watch this last video we're about to present. Also this month, I've got Tyler Haney, all the way from Bachmann Industries in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he shares with us some of the latest news and new products from Bachmann. They're coming out with a lot of neat models, and this month will not disappoint. Also, be sure to check out the What's Neat This Week video podcast that we shoot down here in the studio every Saturday night, keeping you updated on what's new in the hobby with special guests, new products, and you never know what's going to happen on Saturday night. It's always kind of fun to see. And so with that, let's continue on with the rest of this May 2023 What's Neat.
Hello, this is Michael Gross, and you're watching What's Neat with Ken Patterson.
Now that we've built this beautiful shelf layout, which fits into the upper area of my layout room over there, as if you're going uphill and going somewhere else, like I've explained before, now it's finally completely finished. But the fact is, a lot of people that build shelf layouts simply do it because they live in an apartment or they're confined for space. Well, let's say at some point you do get some additional space and you want to work your shelf layout into a larger layout, something like a loop, which is what I'm going to do here for videography. So let me show you next in this videotape how to build a 5-foot by 12-foot layout that would look great in your man cave or in your studio or in your apartment or any nice room in your home where it's not too big, it doesn't take up too much space, and you can always switch out the shelf layout with a different scene anytime you want, and then have at some point this magnificent looking layout that you can run your trains along. So that's what I want to talk about next in this video. I'm going to discuss with you all the elements of the hobby that we need to do to build scenery and build a layout like what it is you're looking at right here. So now let me walk you through the process of turning our shelf layout into a permanent layout by giving it a diorama that it can set into. I cut a groove with a 3/4 inch router bit and a router to make a tongue and groove joint so I could push 2 4x8 sheets of foam together. I used dimensional lumber, in this case 1x4s, and I cut them down to fit the depth of the router bit. Using Gorilla Glue and water, these 2 sections of foam were pushed together into what will be a 12-foot long continuous loop to drop our shelf layout into. Working with a yardstick, I plotted a few radiuses between 21 and 24 inches to match up to the shelf layout's track pattern. Later, this radius was made bigger by adding foam to the sides of the layout, which would eventually be 5 feet wide. I used Great Stuff Foam Pro to glue the 2 layers of foam together, starting at the ends. This stuff sets up in about 30 minutes and it's bulletproof. After applying both ends, I started to fill the center section with the Great Stuff Foam Pro glue. And when all of this is dry, the layout will be very firm, very strong, and it'll be a one-piece layout. Everything was weighted down while the glue cured just to avoid any expansion, but I'll tell you, this glue does not expand very much at all. I sealed the foam base with brown latex house paint just to avoid any foam shrinkage down into the future. I laid microengineering HON3 Flex Track And I bent the sections to the correct radius that I thought I was going to use at the time. And I soldered these sections together. I love microengineering track because it holds its curves and makes it a lot easier to plot out track work as you lay track. Now, as you're going to see in this next segment, this radius got bigger to about 26 inches as I added a foot to the side of the layout so that my K37s could round the curves without derailing. The way the track is coming off of the diorama, I'm not able to get a full 24-inch radius, which is what I really need to have for the narrow gauge K36s that I want to run on the layout in order to get them around the curves. And so the plan is to widen the radius, to go from a 19-inch radius and push it all the way up to about a 24-inch radius. And in order to do that, I had to take and add to the diorama. But the problem is, the diorama is already built. One option would be to add a third layer of foam and then build up on top and be able to build out towards the very edges, because as the radius got bigger, I'm to the very edge of the diorama. So that means I need to add just a few more inches, cut it around a nice curve here, just in case something falls over, it doesn't fall onto the floor, it just simply rolls over. Now, how do we attach something straight to this without adding a third layer of foam? Here's my plan. I know it works because I did it right here already. I've already added a good foot, which I'm going to cut back to about 6 inches, which will help me swing this curve wider. And here's the plan. I'm going to set my router up so that my router, I'm using a 3/4 inch router bit, which is a thickness of dimensional lumber, like these 1x4s, which I've run through the bandsaw and cut up smaller. The plan is to take the router, set it up with a fence, run it along the edge of the existing layout on the top and on the bottom, cutting out 2 grooves that are half of the depth of this piece of wood. Then I'll run the router on these other 2 sections of foam right through the groove, right through the center using the fence again. And what will happen is everything should be able to match up. I'll then take this Gorilla Glue, which is a water-based polyurethane glue. Water activates it. And I'll wet the foam routed out crevices that we just made. I'll insert the piece of wood that's liberally covered with the Gorilla Glue into the crevice. And then I'll start assembling the other pieces of foam into their positions, overlapping the board, which now becomes a tongue and groove joint made out of dimensional lumber. Also, between the 2 sections, I've been spraying the Great Stuff Foam Pro orange foam between the foam sections. So I've got double insurance. I've got the Gorilla Glue holding things in place, and I've got the orange foam holding the foam together. So that works pretty good, and that's my tip for you, that if you want to add to an existing diorama made from foam without adding another layer for stability, tongue and groove with dimensional lumber and Gorilla Glue is the way to go. And here's what our layout looks like with the shelf layout worked into it. I've got all the outside edges trimmed and carved to fit the track pattern around the edges, which gives the layout a really nice shape. Everything's sealed and ready for additional scenery. Now I stacked the foam up the center of the whole layout to create a range of mountains or a view block. So when it is filmed outdoors for video run-bys, you won't see the tracks on the other side. I glued the foam hill together with more Great Stuff foam glue and worked all 10 feet of the hill area, just kind of worked my way down. Everything was weighed down until the foam set up for about 25 to 30 minutes. I carried the mountains kind of into the shape. I carved them using a 12-inch printing saw, and I really love these printing saws. They work good, you can bend them. I filled some areas of the hill with additional scrap foam just to feather out the sides of the hill and smooth everything with the level topography at the bottom. I filled some of the holes and grooves with Great Stuff Pro and some additional foam, and then I carve smooth these areas with the pruning saw just to make everything blend in and again look smooth. I love the pruning saw because you can bend it and use it as a draw knife, for example the way I'm doing right here, for smoothing large areas of foam very quickly. On one end of the layout, I wanted to form a creek that passed under the tracks in two different spots. So I used a curved rasp to carve this area. I really like using these carved rasps. I also like using them along the right-of-way of the track to create water drainage and gullies, along both sides of the track. I made a tool from scrap wood that would ensure that the creek bottom was carved the same throughout, ensuring a level base so that when I pour the Envirotech resin that would represent water, it would flow evenly throughout the creek area scene and not run off the edge. I attached the Microengineering Code 70 HON3 track to the layout with liquid nails and a putty knife, just like we did when we built the original shelf layout. I cut the fake fur and applied it to one half of the layout, as you can see in this photograph. I then used the Great Stuff Foam Pro again to glue down all of the fake fur to the layout. This stuff is strong and holds the fur well and doesn't expand if you press it down evenly. I like this a lot better than liquid nails, and it saves a lot of steps and speeds up the process by doing it this way. Now, I've done fake fur articles for probably the last 17 or almost 20 years in the model press, and it really hasn't changed since I first tried this technique back in 1989 when I started the Midwest Valley Modelers Railroad Club, and we used fake fur on that layout. So every time I do an article, you always see me with the hand trimmers in my hand, but it's always a still picture, so you can't see what it is that I'm trying to accomplish or what I'm doing. And the most important thing that you want to do is avoid getting straight patterns because the head of the tool is pretty straight. You want to rely on the edges of the tool when you're doing your trimming. And you want to be very random without any straight lines showing in the material. You're literally trying to cut individual tufts of grass out of the fake fur. So let me show you how I do this just for a moment with my hands. I usually rest my wrist on the work material, and I keep the pattern changing all the time of the tool. Trying not to make straight lines, I like to use the corner of the tool as much as I can. And just work patterns like you see me doing right now. Individual tufts of grass without lines. You want to break up any lines because when you spray this with spray paint, it'll really pick up any patterns that you really don't want to show that wouldn't look natural. You want it to be as randomized as possible. And what we're doing is we're cutting out patches where when the dirt gets applied to the fake fur, and then we put ground foam, 2 colors of ground foam to break up the colors of the fake fur, it adds a very nice scenic element that blends in good then when you cover this with trees, be it pine trees or deciduous trees, or ground up leaves to recreate the effect of fallen leaves. It looks really good with the individual tufts of fake fur coming up through all of that other material. So if you can see what I'm doing here, I got 3 straight lines I don't like. Let me get rid of those right there. They're gone. And just try to keep it random when you do this. It takes a while. But once you start doing it, it goes pretty quick because it's mindless labor. You can think while you do it. And eventually, when this is all finished, it's going to look sort of like this. This is an older scene that hasn't been touched up. It's a little dirty, but as you can see, the fake fur is broken up into random patterns with dirt in it. And then, of course, you can cover this with trees and just, make it a really cool scene. And that's pretty much how I do a lot of the scenes that I build. So I just wanted to kind of cover that in this segment of video just to describe how it is that I cut fake fur. I covered all the track with masking tape, powered up an 8-foot shop fan that was sitting by my exit door to suck all the paint fumes out of my studio, and then I painted the fake fur with canned spray paint, Primarily Rust-Oleum camouflage green paint for starters, because think about it, it's camouflage. It's already been thought about. It's a great green color. It looks really natural and vegetation-y. I also mixed a little bit of light green in some of the areas just to break up the color. I've experimented in the past and even used a little bit of camouflage brown here and there in patches. This looks really good when it's all finished. And this is what it looked like while it was drying under photo floodlights. I used the lights to help speed up the dry process because, as you can imagine, fake fur is cloth, and so it has a tendency to be a slow drying medium. I used a screen, like a screen from the grocery store, a colander, to help spread the sifted backyard dirt onto the diorama evenly. I covered the fake fur, I covered the flat painted foam areas. The whole layout got an even coating of this dirt, which helps the continuity and pulls it all together. Watch this for a few minutes real time as I cover the layout with dirt. I used a hairbrush to even the dirt out, brushing it in and exposing the green tufts of fake fur, kind of teasing them and getting them to pop up out of the dirt. Watch as I work the dirt into the fake fur with the hairbrush and the paintbrush, feathering and filling the sides of the creek. I just kind of work it. It's like an art. It's sort of like painting with dirt, but if you do this part right, this is the part that really helps be the basis for making the fake fur just look really natural. For ballasting the track, I use screened creek rock. That is 1 to 2 inch diameter in size in HO scale gravel. Now I spread this straight from the can all around the entire layout, just kind of sprinkling it out. I use artist paintbrushes and my finger to evenly spread the ballast along the right-of-way. This works. I sprinkled various sizes of boulders and rocks around the whole diorama. This again was screened creek rock, which helped give continuity to the entire scene. It helps blend everything together, and it certainly looks like Western type scenery. I applied light green and medium green Woodland Scenics ground foam to the layout, adding additional depth to the entire scene. This settles down between the fake fur tufts and kind of in on the dirt because it works. It helps blend things together. I'm guesstimating about 6 bottles of Woodland Scenic cement will glue this entire diorama. It's just got to get wet, and that's what we're going to do now. Yeah, well, I actually used 8 bottles of scenic cement to glue down all the scenery material. I had plastic tarps on the floor and, just ground cloths, in other words, just to keep the wet glue from dripping onto the carpet. I added a mix of manufacturers' pine trees to the layout. There's a mix of Bachmann, Knock, and I really like Grand Central Gems trees. These all come pre-made, they all have good color, and when you mix them in variety like I do, not one tree all looks alike. You get a good depth and a good variation of trees. These allowed the view block effect to work so that you couldn't really see from one side of the diorama to the other, and it certainly made a great scene on the back curve for videography. It really kind of helped the entire layout scene flow together. And that pretty much finishes this diorama. So at this point, I think it's time to see what this layout looks like outdoors under real sunlight in action with the trains running. And so after all of that effort, this is what our shelf layout turned out to look like. And it's adaptable either on the home permanent layout up against the wall in its shelf position, or as you can see, I've adapted it to this layout where it can run around, continuous running, have an interchangeable shelf layout, and still be a home layout that you can fit into a man cave, something that's only 12 feet by 5 feet, but has an interchangeable section here that'll always keep it changing for you and always keep it interesting. I might at some point wrap this whole diorama in oak and finish it off to be a really nice finished layout, but it's really shown its design features that have worked for the interchangeable section that we've got. So that's pretty much the video on how to build a shelf layout in any scale, adapt it to your home layout or adapt it to a smaller transportable portable layout. I hope you've enjoyed this adventure that we've had constructing and building this small scene of paradise.
For this segment of What's Neat, I've got Tyler Haney, all the way from Bachmann Industries in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tyler, how are you? Let me bring your picture up here so we can see you.
Thanks, Ken. I'm doing great. Excited to be on the show for the first time. I'm the assistant product manager at Bachmann. I've been there about a year and a half now. And, growing up, I always enjoyed looking at the Bachmann catalogs and seeing your photography on the cover and throughout the catalog. Here's the 2023 catalog we have right here. Of course, you shot the photograph for us always, and it was a pleasure to meet you last year at the NMRA convention and to do the show now for the first time. So I've got some of our newest samples, some new road names, some all new projects that I'm happy to and excited to show off today.
No, that's very cool, Tyler. Start us out with what have you got first?
Yeah, so this is probably the biggest one we have. We just unveiled this to the public a couple weeks ago, but these are the all new Siemens Venture passenger cars.
Nice.
So this is the next project in our continuing relationship with Siemens, who designed the Venture passenger cars along with the ACS 64 and Charger locomotives. So just like with the ACS 64 and the Charger, these are all new tooling based directly from Siemens blueprints and engineering documents to get them as prototypically accurate as possible. These are all unpainted samples I'm going to be showing today, but this is the Amtrak Midwest version of the Venture car that is being used on all of Amtrak's Midwest routes out of Chicago and Detroit, Milwaukee, your neck of the woods in Missouri.
Absolutely.
So,
yes, we've seen those cars.
Yeah, we're really happy with how these turned out. They have specific exterior configurations based on the types of cars in service, such as coach class, business class, cafe car, fully detailed and illuminated interiors, fully detailed underbodies. These are just absolutely beautiful cars.
Yes.
Nice roof shot for you as well. So this is, like I said, the Amtrak Midwest version. This is based on coach class, the Midwest cars. We will be having the additional types coming in down the pipeline as they're put into service. The business class, the married coach car pairs, and the cafe car. So that's what we have for Midwest so far. What we also have to complement the Via Rail Canada Charger, the SCV42, which we unveiled at the Amherst Hobby Show. We have the Via Rail Venture cars, and we are going to be offering the complete Via Rail train set right out of the gate. Each car will be sold separately, but we'll be selling all 5 cars in these new train sets that Via Rail is operating between Toronto and Montreal on their corridor route.
Wow, that's nice. Our Canadian fans are going to love that news.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. This is the I have one of each car type. This is the 3A business class, which goes directly behind the locomotive. You can see it's got the specific end detailing to this car. Has a steel door to go because it's going right behind the locomotive.
Very cool.
We have the 3B type business class car, which is much the same, just with open diaphragms on both ends.
Okay.
We have the 1A and 1B coach class car. I have one sample of these. There are 2 of them in the consist, so we'll be offering 2 road numbers so you can have the complete train set. And then this is definitely the coolest one of the bunch. This is the Via Rail Canada cab car, coach class for the majority of it, and then a cab car end for forward and reverse push-pull operation. We pull up the Charger locomotive here, and you can see the family resemblance.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
so
goodness.
this will have DCC functionality for light and sound. So when you put this in a consist with the Via locomotive and you're running it back and forth, the lights and sounds will operate accordingly. You'll have the horn on the cab car, and you'll have the headlights or the markers depending on which direction you're running it in. So it's really cool. to be able to offer this whole train set and kind of continue this ongoing series of modern commuter trains. And it's all thanks to Siemens that we're able to do this. And we're really happy to continue working with them.
I'm so impressed with the thoroughness and the amount of research that must have went into the design of all of those beautiful cars.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some great contacts at Siemens as well as at the Illinois Department of Transportation, which ordered the Midwest cars, and with WHATS to help us make sure these are as accurate as possible. So moving on from that, we're going to kind of change things up a bit and go from passenger to freight.
Okay.
And this is our new transfer caboose model. This was another model that we unveiled at Amherst as a pre-production sample, and now we have our first decorated samples here. For those of you who don't know, transfer cabooses, they came in various different forms. Often railroads would rebuild them from old freight cars and put a caboose cabin on them with platforms on them. And a lot of the time, these were used on switching and industrial routes where you would have a lot of backup moves, and the caboose would be on your front end of the train as you were pushing the train along. So
Right.
the transfer caboose was designed to accommodate that. It was a little bit stripped down from a full caboose where you wouldn't have necessarily sleeping accommodations, but, gives a comfortable place for the crew to ride. So our transfer caboose,
There you go. Look at
Yes.
that.
there you go. That's Missouri Pacific for you, Ken. So our
Perfect.
transfer caboose model is based off Missouri Pacific blueprints. And I did want to point out, because we've had a couple of comments about this, that the Missouri Pacific actually did not use these cars as transfer cabooses per se. They were actually used on their mainline trains as regular cabooses.
That is
And
true.
we are aware of that. We're classifying this as a transfer caboose because this is basically representative of this kind of car.
Yes.
And again, this is based on Missouri Pacific blueprints because this kind of style where you have the platforms on the end, the roof overhanging, and the bay window like this was pioneered by the Missouri Pacific, and then a bunch of other roads liked the design and went on to kind of copy it and make their own versions. So I'm going to show those versions in a moment.
Okay.
But you can see this has some great detail here. You've got a separately applied toolbox and fuel tank on the platform here. All these separate handrails. Got your bay window there, which I think gives it some pretty cool character, and a very nicely detailed underbody.
Yes. Now that's exciting. That's going to have the folks here in the Midwest all excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's some of the other road names we have for it. This is Union Pacific. After the Union Pacific acquired the Missouri Pacific, a lot of the Missouri Pacific transfer cabooses, or I should say short bay window cabooses, went onto the Union Pacific roster. As far as we know, this is the only one that was painted in Union Pacific armor yellow.
Okay.
So really stands out in their fleet. But Union Pacific used a lot of these from the time they acquired Union Pacific all the way up into the 21st century.
Right.
And
Very
then
nice.
to show an example of some of the copies of the Missouri Pacific style, this is a CSX transfer caboose. These were originally built by the Louisville and Nashville, kind of copying the Missouri Pacific design with a couple of differences. So we took the Missouri Pacific design and put some CSX paint on it to kind of represent these cars, which again were being used pretty recently. All of these cars could be found from the late 70s up until the current day in some cases on these roads that have a lot of switching and backup moves on their lines.
Very cool.
And finally, we have another really sharp looking one, Southern Pacific number one of a kind transfer caboose, the only one that Southern Pacific had of this style. And I think it looks really cool in the daylight colors for
It
sure.
does. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So that's what we have for transfer cabooses. They should be out later this year, and you can always stay tuned to Bachmann social media. We always post updates when all these things are shipping and on their way to the dealers. That's what we have for HO scale. I've also got a couple of N scale models as well that we're pretty excited about.
Okay.
This is an all-new tooling. This is our new N scale 52-foot 6-inch drop end gondola. So pretty similar to a car that we've offered in HO. We tweaked the design a little bit, and I think for N scale especially, this is some really impressive detail. I'm going to pull it in real nice here so you can see this brake wheel part on the end of the car. I think that's really cool how it had the stick out to allow the drop ends to be lowered and to put loads in the end of the car. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Not to mention the underbody detail on this as well with all the separately applied brake rigging there. And the drop ends on this drop end gondola are functional. You just push them down like so. And that way you can load in your undersized loads this way. So it's a really
that
cool car.
I could just see that. That's fantastic. With, say, a bunch of large poles sticking out on each end and an idler flat car on each end so that there's clearance for the poles. That in itself would make an interesting conceptual load for someone's layout.
Yeah, exactly. These cars are going to come without loads. So it's up to the modeler to kind of use your imagination, look at some prototype photos, but it gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of different things you can do with it. And we've got 4 road names for this car. We don't have the decorated samples for them yet. We should be getting them hopefully soon, which will be New York Central, Union Pacific, Frisco, and Great Northern.
There you go, Frisco. Good. Yes, another Midwest railroad.
Yeah, we're treating you right today, Ken.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate it. We all do. Yeah. Tyler, what else do you have?
Yeah, so I've got one more model to show you today.
Okay.
And, I think one of the coolest things about working at Bachmann is the amount of variety and different things we do in our product line, from some of the most modern current equipment like the Siemens equipment I just showed you and the Acela 2, which we have in development, all the way back to your old-time Golden Spike 19th century old-time models that we do in HO and N scale. We have to say we have a lot of fun at Bachmann, and this next model is all about fun. We've done these in HO and large scale, and now this is our N scale version. This is our animated stock car, which has the animal heads bobbing in and out of these little windows on the side of the car. And hopefully that will show up well in the broadcast. But it's really fun to see when you're going around a corner and these animal heads are popping in and out of the window, getting some fresh air, I suppose. So we've got, it's a little hard to see, but we actually did do specific animals for this car, and we have 3 different kinds of animals. So this is the Burlington version has little cattle heads that will pop out.
Okay.
And we also have cattle heads popping out on the Rio Grande car.
Okay.
Then we have our Union Pacific, which comes with horses riding on board, popping in and out. And of course, we love our Christmas trains. A lot of people love to have trains at Christmas.
Yes.
So we can't be without our North Pole and Southern animated stock car with the reindeer.
Okay, that's
popping
cool.
their heads in and out.
The youth are going to love that.
Absolutely. We know it's not prototypical, but we've gotten a lot of positive response, and people really enjoy having it in HO and large scale. So we want the N-scalers to get in on the fun as well.
That is very, very cool, Tyler. So with that, I guess that rounds out this May's video of the new products from Bachmann Industry. And I'm telling you, those passenger cars, and just that everything was impressive. I didn't see those passenger cars coming, especially with that end car that rides on the rear. That's just amazing.
Yeah, we're really happy with how they've turned out, and it'll be even better when we have the decorated versions with the Amtrak Midwest and VIA branding. So we're really looking forward to showing those and building on this series as time goes on.
That is very cool, Tyler. All right, guys, so that's the May's What's Neat video for 2023. I'd like to thank very much Tyler Haney for closing out the show with the new products from Bachmann Industries. Thank you very much, Tyler, for being on the show. And with that, that's this segment for What's Neat.
All of the products seen on this episode of What's Neat are available from Lombard Hobbies in Lombard, Illinois, or order online at lombardhobby.com. Bachmann Trains. Now that's the way to run a railroad. Check out their website at bachmanntrains.com.